From the battlefield, let's turn to the diplomacy, to a question rather. Will Vladimir Putin come to India for the G20 summit? The summit is next month on September 9th and 10th. So far, there is no confirmation about Putin's attendance. He was asked about it recently, and this was his reply. I don't know yet. I haven't thought about it. We'll have to see. So pretty non-committal. If Putin does come, expect some fireworks. He would be face-to-face with all Western leaders, Joe Biden, Rishi Sunak, Emmanuel Macron, Olaf Scholz, all of them. Not a single Western leader has met Putin after he invaded Ukraine. But at the G20, they may have to share the stage. So I come back to my question, will Putin come? Let's look at India's position first. As host, we have to invite all the G20 members. So Putin does have an official invite from New Delhi. But is that a genuine invite? Or is it just courtesy? Here's what the Indian government said.
I don't have yet any information to share about any physical visits. We would, I think, hope to see President Putin at the G20 Leaders Summit in September. But whether there's a separate visit or not, I don't have anything particular to share.
The Russian president has visited 8 countries since the invasion. Let's pull up the map for you. He's visited all 5 Central Asian countries, or the 5 stans as they're called. He's also visited Iran, Belarus and Armenia. Now what's common about these countries? They're either close partners of Russia, like Belarus, or they absolutely hate the West, like Iran. But India does not fit perfectly in either group. It does have close relations with Russia, but it also shares close relations with the West. So it's a tough call to make. I'm sure a lot of debate is happening behind the scenes. Let's not speculate on that. Instead, let's look at the known variables. We know 3 things for sure. Number 1, this is the second G20 summit after the war broke out. The 2022 meeting was hosted by Indonesia. Putin did not attend that summit. He skipped it. Number 2, he will also skip the BRICS summit in South Africa. Putin will attend this event virtually. There was a big controversy around whether he would be arrested. You see, the ICC has issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin. This is the International Criminal Court, the ICC. South Africa has ratified the ICC charter. So technically, South Africa will have to arrest Putin if he lands on their soil. Their government, though, rejected all of this. Nonetheless, Putin chose to stay away. And finally, number 3, the arrest warrant is not a problem for India. We have not signed the ICC charter, so an arrest is not even a technical possibility. Does that mean Putin will turn up? I'm afraid it's not as simple as that. If it were, the trip would have been announced. Putin is visiting Turkey this month. That trip has already been announced by Moscow. He's also visiting China in the month of October. That too has been confirmed. It's only the New Delhi visit that is yet to be announced. What does that tell you? The issue is not scheduling or dates. The issue is political, and a lot depends on India's concerns. How will the West react if Putin turns up? Will they boycott the summit? Will they allow a joint statement? Will they even allow a civil discussion? And let's face it, a summit with Putin will be vastly different from one without him. Forget issues of the global south, forget hunger, forget climate change. Chances are just one issue will be discussed then, and that issue is Ukraine. And if that happens, India's job becomes even more difficult. Why is that? Because we are hosting the summit. It is India's job to draft a joint statement that all members will agree to. Indonesia managed to do that last year, but India has had less success. In March this year, the G20 foreign ministers met. No joint statement came out. In July, the G20 finance ministers met. Again, no joint statement. If the same happens in September, it would be a major embarrassment. India has pitched itself as a bridging power. So if India can't bridge differences, who can? I'm sure Vladimir Putin knows all of this. If he turns up in New Delhi, the summit would be about one thing, and that's Putin himself. It also makes the chances of a consensus that much harder. So the president has a big choice to make, and so does India. New Delhi had a chance to host Putin last month. The SCO summit was happening. That's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It was supposed to be an in-person meeting, but India said, let's do a virtual one instead. Was this done to avoid hosting Putin? Well, with the SCO, it's hard to say. You also had Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Compared to them, I'm sure Putin was more welcome. Either way, the G20 summit promises to be a tough balancing act for New Delhi, possibly India's biggest yet. Abstaining at United Nations Security Council meetings is one thing. So is buying Russian oil or sending aid to Ukraine. But getting a consensus in New Delhi next month will be that much harder. India will need all the goodwill it has.